Hello and welcome to the Roundtable Podcast. My name is Shogun, and joining me today for the third time is my friend Destrix, aka Thinking Yikes. And today we're going to be discussing the Brotherhood of Eternal Love and the Psychedelic Renaissance. Before we get started, make sure you've joined the Roundtable Discord server where we record this podcast every day, often at 9 p.m. Central, as well as other times. Check the announcements channel for upcoming special events and the RT podcast channel for hundreds of great past special events, interviews, and debates on YouTube and BitChute and SoundCloud. Like, follow, and subscribe. That being said, welcome, Districts. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me once again, Shogun, and shout out to the Roundtable Discord server. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Very interesting subject indeed. Looking forward to it. Where should we start? Can you give us an introduction to the Brotherhood of Eternal Love?
Yeah, okay, so I will say that I am a former member of the Brotherhood of Eternal Love. I think the people that are a member of that whole thing that's going on over there are doing God's work, right? Whether they know it or not, they're still a part of the Brotherhood. And I think that's what's fascinating about it, is because what we find in this quote-unquote secret society is there's not much info out there. A lot of people that are a member of the Brotherhood don't like to talk about it, or it's not even that they don't like to talk about it. It's like they're being told not to, you know what I'm saying? But luckily, as a former member of the Brotherhood that has personal experience with it, I've been allowed by God to share some insight into the Brotherhood, as well as catch, former members up to speed of current activities, right? So you can be a member or not a member at any time. But what's neat about it is you can keep up with it. Like, you know what I mean? It can be like, you can be a member, or you can, be a fan, or, there's whole different aspects around what this thing is. So.
Okay, so it's a psychedelic organization, and it originated in the hippie era, like the 60s. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it was, came to fruition, as early as the 40s and 50s. We saw a rise in popularity and the true renaissance that came with it, I would say, around the mid 60s. But as we dive into the 70s and even, into the 80s, 90s, and today, this is still happening, but it's kind of shifted from the limelight to amongst the mist, right? So it's very mysterious, but it's still out there.
Now, there's also something called the family, the Grateful Dead family. That was another big sort of drug cartel / mafia cult that created around the LSD era. Is there any connection between the Grateful Dead family and the Eternal Brotherhood of Love?
Yeah, there definitely is. And I think it's very paramount to understand that there is a relationship there. Now, I will say this, that people that are part of the family, right, are always family members. Now, I'll say that people that are members of the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, they can dip in and out at any time. So there's still a deeper connection to the dead, but there is intermittence of the two, right, in that scene.
So is the goal of the Brotherhood of Eternal Love mostly just to spread LSD as like a sacrament as far and wide as they can?
I would say that the levels of the Brotherhood go much deeper than meets the eye. To some, it might seem that way, right? But to others, they knew the true intent of the Brotherhood, and that's to bring people to God ultimately. You know what I mean? So it depends on how much and how familiar you are with these things. And this is how true wisdom and insight is. People can give you a perspective that can seem a bit more than meets the eye at times. So you really have to judge for yourself. And I'm just going to present the information and think about it.
So is this the beginning of the podcast?
Yeah, it's relatively close to the beginning. So that being said, Mr. Destrix, how did you get involved in this organization in the first case?
Okay, so being a former member, this is not something that you choose to do. The only choice that you make is knowing that you don't have a choice and accepting that for what it is, right? Now, these things are simply given to you in a divine nature from above in efforts to you to come closer to that God, right? And your life and how it represents itself to you. And you're ultimately serving Him, right? And in doing so, um, you're empowering yourself as well as those around you through true eternal love. And that pretty much sums it up.
So can you elaborate a bit on the concept of eternal love, right? It's a brotherhood of eternal love. So what does eternal love refer to exactly?
Okay, so again, varying levels of understanding here. In my understanding, uh, this is how it's going to work, right? You're going to dive into a realm of different perspectives. And once you're there, you're going to see things that are different. And you might agree or not agree with those things, right? But ultimately, this is where it's going to rely on. And when you can have that foothold or that cornerstone by your side with you, right? Uh, you're very empowered and you feel the eternal love and strength and knowing that you do have eternal life. And that means that basically there's going to come an end to your work, right? So the eternal brotherhood, these were people that were serving God, right? Ultimately, they might have knew it or they might not have knew it at the time, right? Varying levels, right? But they all were going towards the same goal. And that goal is to ultimately come as close to God as possible in the end.
So when you say that the brotherhood of eternal love is doing God's work, you mean like literally God himself wants psychedelics to get out there and to be used?
Well, it's much more than just psychedelics. Like I said, you have to understand that this is a very intricately woven web of being and creation, right? And it is far outside of the parameters that many people will never come to fathom or come to true understanding, right? And that's not because of themselves, it's because God hasn't given it to them, right? But I would say that some people do come to this realization that they are working for God, they are His servant, right? But then there's some people that will do something that isn't psychedelically related, and that could just be like mowing your neighbor's lawn, right? So you have to understand there's all varying levels to it. It's not one thing. It's just eternal love, right? So if your basis is in love, you need to radiate love at all times. So that could be, bringing in the groceries or, mowing your neighbor's grass or something like that. It's just so simple. But it could be some divine, intervention where this person was had to be given LSD at this exact time, and it all had to line up perfectly to complete the destiny, right? So yeah, I mean, it could be both of those. That's what I'm saying.
So what is the current state of the brotherhood of eternal love? Is it still going strong? Has it died away? Where is it most active? And like, what is it engaged in doing in 2021?
Well, I mean, these parts with the current technology, I mean, the brotherhood is everywhere at this point. And, people are starting to realize this. And some of us, we've been knowing this for quite some time, right? But it's really starting to come alive and we're seeing it more and more every day. So all I have to say is enjoy the trip.
All right. So the trip is the sacrament of psychedelics, primarily LSD. You've given us a good little introduction here. Why don't we open it up for audience questions and participation? If anybody has questions or comments, please go ahead. If not, I'll continue with the interview. Does anyone have a question or comment for Thinking Yikes?
I do. I have a question.
Go ahead.
My question is, why am I already crying?
I mean, you're special. Like, right? Everyone's special. You know, some people just don't know it yet, right? So the ones that already know it, they know it for a reason. And the reason is they have to be prepared and experienced to present it to people as such yourself, right? So it's like, you have to understand that, like, you know, we have a lot of respect for you, for one. You know, we love you, too. And, you know, we're just doing what we're told. So just know that, you know, there's people just like you out there. And there's also people like you that have been exactly where have you've been, right? I mean, think about it. I mean, everybody right now, like supposedly mathematically, there's a very good chance that someone's out there doing the exact same thing that you're doing, right? So it's a huge place, and like I said, it's, you know, the the true reality of how perfect the creation is and how intricate, elegantly, magnificently woven it is, right? Like it's, I mean, like all this stuff is just unfathomable, and you won't get it unless it's given to you, right? So trust in God, and, you know, listen to
You
what He
shall.
has to tell you, right? Listen to what He has to tell you, and if that resonates with you, then, you know, trust in Him. Why not, right?
You shall direct thy path.
Does anyone else have a question for Destrix or a comment?
Yeah. So, like, how can we get psychedelics to become legal?
Well, they already are legal, right? And the most advanced technicians in this field, you know, they know where DMT is coming from, right? So when you understand how DMT works, then you'll understand that it is free and legal, right? But you just have to understand and utilize nature to your advantage. So look, you know, stick with God, right? And He's going to let you, you know, play in the garden, as they say, right? But ultimately, you are the key. So unlock yourself.
How do you decipher through? Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I was wondering how you decipher, like, when you get any information while taking psychedelics, what you distinguish as your interpretation and what is actually true.
Okay, so psychedelics of old is kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like old technology, right? These days, there's much more advanced technology that the current quote unquote hippies are utilizing, right? So when you understand how all that works, and then, you know, how it plays into the story of the book of life, you know, the Lamb's book of life, as talked about in Revelations, I mean, all this stuff lines up, and you have to understand that, you know, God is walking in the garden, and if you have access to the garden, you know, you'll be with Him, right? So this is much more deeply, you know, intertwined, and you're going to have to be patient with God, and you're also going to have to be patient with yourself in the end. But all I would recommend to you is just to radiate love wherever you go.
What do you think of people who make money from selling psychedelics?
Um, that's a great question. Um, in my experience, right, when I was a part of the Brotherhood, I would say that it was very much frowned upon, um, at least in the varying levels of the Brotherhood, right, to accept monetary gain unless it was required, right? And what that may mean is that, like, this is all this person has. This was meant to take place. This was decided amount before the creation was even created, right? Um, and the reason it was that way was because it had to be that way, right? So when you look at it on that level, it is what it is, right? But in my field of resonation. It just didn't resonate with me to accept any money. I thought that it needed to be free, and I'm going to be quite frank with you. I thought at that time, right, that those medicines should not cost anything because of how valuable they were to the person at their point in their existence, right? And that was just me. But I can understand when things are divinely created into existence and they must take place that way. I understand that too.
All right,
What?
great questions. Do you have another one, Rokumo?
Yeah. What do you think the future of psychedelics is for humanity?
Uh, I mean, when people start to understand that they are the psychedelic, right? I think that's the next step. When people start understanding where DMT comes from, right, and the truth about it, people will start coming to themselves ultimately. And the beauty about that is it can happen in the blink of an eye, right? Because if everybody's already making their own psychedelics for free, right, and everybody's doing that, then it's beautiful, quite frankly, that it can happen as fast as they want it to happen, right?
So, what do you think is the future of the psychedelic movement? Like, where are we now, and where do you think it's going to go? Is it getting to like legalization and a new renaissance, or what do you think?
I think traditional psychedelics may be used in the future as entertainment. But for now, I would say that they're just unnecessary. Utilizing the current technology would be much more simpler, easier, legal, free. There's too many pros, right, for the new technology than there is for the traditional psychedelics currently. Now that's not in all areas. Like I think the Netherlands, right? I think some things are legal there. I know in America, the you can grow the trichoceres, but you can't. I think it's illegal to consume it, right? So I mean, there's different laws, and you have to be worried about those constantly, right? And that's what sucks about it. And I think until the laws change, right, we're it would be a limitation. That's why I'm not part of that game, right? I'm not part of that part of the Brotherhood anymore because of that reason. But I mean, when you understand how you are actually manufacturing DMT, and I'm not talking you, I'm talking about like your body, right? Like your body is manufacturing its own DMT. I mean, it's reported that schizophrenics have twice the normal amount of DMT in their urine when they do testing on these things. So, I mean, and schizophrenics are apparently 1% of the population, right? So that's 1 in 100, So, I mean, you really think about it. If you're excreting DMT as a part of your being, right? Um, why not just drink the DMT, right? I mean, it's so simple. I mean, it's profound. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'm not the one that created all this stuff, right? But anyways, I mean, just look into it. Learn the truth about your body and the DMT that it makes. So,
Brother, I have a question.
okay.
So this last year, we have all been seeing uh, something approaching. Some people might think that that's like a personal thing, and some people have reason to think that it's a worldwide transformation. But let me put a word in it. which is pandemonium or apocalypse. What do you think about these concepts?
Oh, I mean, I'll tell you like this, right? God created everything, right, by him, for him. And I think, you know, that's not word for word verbatim, but I'm pretty sure that's Colossians. You know, that's in Colossians. So if you go look in there, right, go look in the Book of Life, Colossians. You know, you'll find some truths there, right? So you can see these things for yourself, and you can really see how they affect you or how they speak to you. And everyone's going to have their own perfect experience, right? And that's just because how perfect the creation is. That's how perfect you are. That's, you know, that's just God glorifying himself, right? So I think that whatever you think might happen, it could be the opposite of it, right? So, you know, don't take what you think as truth or logic, right? Because it clearly tells you in the Bible not to, right? It's like, don't rely on your own logic or whatever it says, right? You know, you need to lean on God. You need to cleave onto God. You need to listen to him for guidance. He's the one that has the answers, right? Why you think you got the answers? If you think you know it all, then why are you here, right? So just listen to what God has to say. He's the one that's going to tell you. He's like, look, this is what I do, right? He's like, look, this is what I experience, right? So, I mean, if he's here walking the earth with you, why not just listen to him? I mean, I just don't get people these days. But yeah, was there any more questions?
Yeah, I have a final question. We've talked about the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, psychedelics. What would you like people to take away from this podcast, the live audience, as well as the recorded audience on YouTube and BitChute? What do you want them to take away from this episode?
Of this one? Look, you are the fountain of youth, right? So there's no need to go searching in the jungle for it. That just doesn't make any sense. So come to the truth, and it will truly set you free, quite literally. And there's no stopping it. So see you soon.
Thank you so much, Destrix, aka Thinking Yikes, for your third great podcast. It was a great one. Thank you to everybody for attending and for your questions and comments. Make sure you find this and all our podcasts on our RT podcast channel. We have YouTube video, BitChute, SoundCloud, all with their own episodes. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Join us again at 7 for an episode with Mr. Hermes about his interpretation of the Garden of Eden story and the meaning of sin. That's at 7 o'clock. And check out announcements for all upcoming events. We'll be doing them every day moving forward. Thank you, Destrix. Thank you, everybody. Let's rendezvous in the pub. How about? And we'll continue to relax and converse. So I'll see you guys in the pub. Thank you, Rafi and Thorsten, for recording.